Hi everyone, welcome to the 59th episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host Ryan Ziax, and today I'm joined by actor and filmmaker Nick Bonanno.
How are you? How you doing?
Awesome, Nick, awesome. I'd like to shout out episode 31 guest Liam Chen for TDing once again. So as you can see, I'm not wearing one of my usual Hawaiian shirts, but my fit kind of looks like Homelander's.
100%.
Which is fitting because you're the first person to ever say that I look like Homelander,
Yeah.
which has become a huge part of my reputation,
Yeah.
as you can tell by the Bad Friends comment section.
Oh, yeah,
so it's kind of a full circle moment here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you, of course, know what we do here in the Zicast, Nick, so we
course.
could jump right into it. I'd like to ask you to tell us a bit about yourself.
All right, so I'm Nicholas Charles Bonanno the first. I'm a film, television, and media arts major with a marketing minor. I live in South Windsor, Connecticut, which is 45 minutes from Quinnipiac University. I'm a huge fan of movies. And I want to pursue a career in the film industry. And thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. And that's a perfect way to begin things. So I'd like to ask you where your passion for film stems from.
Oh, wow. Growing up, my entire life, I've always been a fan of movies. Always. With my family, the amount of movie nights we've always had, going to the movies, experiencing these awesome stories come to life on the big screen, it was always surreal to me. And it was something that me and my brother and my mom and my dad, the four of us, we always bonded over. Like me, my dad, and my brother, we'd always quote movies here and there. Like our big one's comedy. But we'd always watch a lot of comedy movies or any movies in general, and we'd always just randomly with mid-conversation, we'll just throw out a random quote in there, and we'll just laugh about it. But creating these stories that made me and my family really bond together is something I want to do. And it's weird because even back in the day, my grandfather, he actually was in a lot of movies growing up.
Really?
So yeah, it was cool. I always heard so many stories about it, and I'm like, wow. And he was a huge movie buff like me, apparently. So growing up, everyone's like, oh yeah, you get it from your grandfather, and I'm like, that's so cool. So I feel like with my family values, that's really where my passion really stands from, and I want to create stories to tell.
Yeah. I've always felt that in your voice as a filmmaker, how you want to make films for people like that watching with their families and enjoying it. And you talk about your grandpa being in movies. Tell me more about that. Do you know what he worked in?
A lot of it, well, I'm Italian, and I actually call him Nono instead of grandpa, but no, when he was a younger man or kid, whatever. He always told me how, well, he came to America with my grandmother in 1955, but before that, when he was a young lad, I guess I'll say that. No, he was in a lot of movies. He used to be a bread boy. He used to ride his bike and hand bread out to the neighbors. So when they were filming projects, old Italian projects, you would see him riding by. They need someone for a bread boy. So they'll say, hey, can you come over here and we're filming a movie. Can you ride your bike and just pass out bread and stuff? We need this for the shot. And he'd be like, yeah, that's awesome. So because of that, that's where he started gaining his love for movies. And I feel like I've kind of picked up from that in a way. You know what I mean? It's
kind of like humble beginnings.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's awesome that he was able to find himself on sets in those natural ways and then be able to create a love for cinema that he then would pass down to you and the rest of your family.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful thing. And you talk about loving comedy movies, which leads us perfectly into our next topic, which is your love for comedy movies and why you think they're important.
Oh, wow. Comedies, for me, they're just my absolute favorite. Anytime I think of a movie to watch, I always try to find a really funny movie to watch, because I feel like that also leads into why I think they're really important, because I feel like in this day and age, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in our world and our society, and I feel like comedies are what we need the most. I feel like finding a movie where we can all come together and just laugh and just have such a fun time. I feel like that's just what everyone needs. Everyone needs a good laugh. Laughter is the best medicine. That's what I believe. Well, besides medicine's the best medicine. I just, every time I would watch a comedy, especially with my friends and family, just when we're all together and we're just laughing our asses off, it just it's kind of a surreal feeling, and I always love being the funny guy with my friends, and that's what I want to do. I want to make comedies that will make people laugh and just come together. And I just feel like that's really what we need right now.
I very much second that. And I do miss kind of going to the theaters and seeing like just big funny comedies and being able to enjoy that. And it actually very well leads us into what is my next topic, because you made a film that was a homage to The Hangover.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about the films you've worked on and stories just from that.
Yeah. Well, as Ryan mentioned, I made a parody of The Hangover in the beginning of the semester, so around late September. A parody of The Hangover called The College Hangover, which Ryan was amazing in. He played a parody of the RA. He was awesome. No, but The Hangover is one of my favorite movies. So, I mean, with all my friends here in college, I'm like, let's make a parody of it. Why not? Let's just make like a fun project. I mean, the Hangover movies are movies that I hold dear to my heart, because that was one of the first, R-rated comedies I ever watched with my dad and my brother. So I'm like, yeah, let's do a remake of it. And that was just a whole fun project, even though it took a long time. But that's what goes into it. And I really love doing that, because especially me wanting to make comedies or be in the film industry as a whole, working on those types of projects with like those types of experience with like the shoot hours and what goes into it, everyone taking breaks, remembering lines and stuff like that. I feel like that was a great way to experience what could be my future and for a career, which I absolutely love. Another project I actually worked on was when I was a junior in high school. I got cast in a locally shot film that actually was shot in Cheshire and Hamden.
Really?
Yeah. And it was called The Legend of Two Pines. And so basically, after my junior year, it was like beginning of summer. My cousin Christiana, she wants to be an actress, and she told me that there's this acting class that's happening on the Berlin Turnpike. And I'm like, oh, okay. And apparently the one who's running the acting class is a director. And you can, if you join the class, the first 10, 15 people that join the class get to have an in-person audition right after. So I'm like, oh, that was really cool. So I was excited for that. So I went to the class and I auditioned for a role after, and it was weird because I haven't really had much in-person auditions, especially because, COVID, there was like a big thing where it's oh, you can't be in person. A lot of it's online or self-tapes. But no, I auditioned in person, and he's like, hey, I'm going to have you read with some people after everyone else gone. So I'm like, oh, okay. And after everyone else went and he had me read with some people, he instantly was like, oh, you're in. You're 100%. That is your role. And of course, I was the comic relief. I was the comic relief in the movie. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty fitting. So that was amazing. And then a few weeks later, we actually shot in Sleeping Giant, which was actually really cool. A lot of the part of the movie, we shot it in Sleeping Giant. It was really cool. It was about 4 kids who basically were trying to uncover a town legend of there possibly being UFO sightings back in 1965. So it was really cool. It was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did that go to film festivals or?
It ran through a few film festivals. I believe it went to. I don't know if it was TIFF. It might have been TIFF. But I know it went through a lot of like local ones, and it won some awards too. So that was actually pretty cool. Yeah, but we had a red carpet premiere for it.
Really?
Yeah. It was cool. So there was, I think it was Branford High School. I think it was. No, I know that we had like a red carpet type of thing. It was like a huge theater. All my family and friends were there. So many people, and they had this huge screen, and you literally walked on a red carpet, and people would like take pictures of like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. And then everyone watched it, and then now it's on YouTube now, which is really cool. So yeah.
So you're no stranger to those red carpets from the Sundance
guess not.
Film Festival.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was just, it was so cool. It was so cool, surreal.
Yeah, so you have like an official acting credit for that. Like, do you have an IMDb and all that?
Yeah. I got
awesome.
credit for it. Yeah.
And that's all the way back when you were in high school too, before Quinnipiac and all the opportunities you got here, and before you were Nick Bavato.
Oh my God.
If you want to tell us a bit about that.
Oh wow, Nick Bavato. So, At Quinnipiac, we have the Quinnipiac Film Society, which is our school's film club. And every semester, we get into groups and we make our mini productions where we make a short film around like 5 to 10 minutes. And so freshman year, which was last year, second semester, me and some of my roommates and my friends, we were thinking, all right, let's make a fake documentary or a fake TLC program of the worst roommate ever. And we were thinking of a name, and one of my roommates last year did not know how to say my last name, Bonanno, so he called me Bavado. And I was like, that's just nothing like my name. But yeah, so we were thinking of like a name to go with, and I'm like, let's just call it Nick Bavado. Like, why not? And because of that, that's what I'm known for now on campus. Everyone's just like, oh my gosh, it's Nick Bavado. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. But no, it's fun. I love working on projects because I'm still like new to filmmaking as a whole, but I loved working on those projects especially with my roommates. It was just really, really cool working together on these cool shorts to do and then show it to everyone in our club. It was fun.
The original was a fan favorite, and then you made a sequel with yours truly appearing as Zicast.
Zicast. Oh, he was the real fan favorite. No, it was awesome. So we made the first one, and people loved it so much. And I'm like, oh, I'm done with this. No, it was so much fun. But my buddies, Josh Brzezinski and Harry Rosenay, shout out to them. They approached me and they were like, hey, for MIDI Productions, this was last semester, we were thinking about making a second one. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so down. I'm so happy for this. And they call it Living Without Nick Bavado. And I just think that's chef's kiss. I think that's hilarious. So we got a whole new cast of characters, bringing back some of the originals. My personal favorite, I'm not being biased, but my personal favorite of all the new characters was Zicast. It was so funny. It was like a Marvel cameo just popping up.
Because it was screened in the theater with a lot of other members of the Quinnipiac Film Society. Yeah. And I just randomly, it just cuts to me, and it was just a roar in the crowd.
That was awesome. That was that was one of the highlights of that night. That was awesome.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And then we, of course, worked on projects together, like the Man Eater music video on the Zicast Productions, which was the Hall & Oates song, but music video we created for our class, which now has over 900 views.
That's awesome.
On YouTube, which was pretty crazy and came out of nowhere. Also with Aaron Christensen, who we work with, who's also on the Zicast. And then we worked on House Money together, with Liam at his house.
Shout out to Liam Chen.
Yeah, shout out to Liam's basement.
Shout out to you guys for spending the time in my creepy basement to film that that short.
Trust me, I had no choice.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
It was all worth it. Yeah, we were acting together, and then it's cool that we've gotten to work together as actors, and then directing each other too.
Exactly.
Because you were directing College Hangover, which was also very incredibly impressive to see you running a set and putting together a very perfectly cast movie too, I will say. When I saw everybody, I could tell who everyone was just because it was so well casted. And then the way that you took the story of The Hangover and then made it college themed, it just all blended so well.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
And of course, you were playing Zach Galifianakis' character, who I know is very near and dear to your heart.
Of course. One of my favorite characters in any movie ever is Alan Garner from the Hangover movies. And the thing with Zach Galifianakis is I just feel like his comedic timing is just so absolutely perfect, especially in those movies, because he has a lot of dumb lines because he's playing like a very, dumb person. But it just, he does it so well. And again, I've said that the Hangover movies are close to my heart, mainly because those were some of the first ones I watched with my dad and brother. And the character we always quote, I think, out of any character from any movie we quote the most, I think it's Alan from The Hangover. And when I was like writing the script, I'm like, I want to play like the Alan character. I want to, because I'm like, he makes so many people laugh in that movie, or like people watching the movie, they laugh their asses off with his character. And I really, really wanted to do that. I wanted to try my best. Nowhere near his level, but no, it was so cool playing that character.
Yeah, and you could always see the passion. Like our professor in that class, Stephen Visasha, that we talked about with the Man Eater video, he always tells us to make films that are personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt you could feel how personal that was to you. So when the proposal to play that character came away, I just had to take it. Had to be a part of that. And I'm glad it was so special and brought you everything you wanted it to.
Yeah, thank you so much. You were awesome.
Thank you. They were playing R.A. Eddie.
R.A. Eddie, he was so fun. He was a character.
Oh,
he was such a character.
He was indeed a character. And we could find it on Bonanno Productions, which brings up what you do well, your production company.
Mm-hmm, Bonanno
you have
Productions.
the logo and everything. We both have the logo as our lock screens.
Yes, we do. All right, so this is mine. Oh, let me see. Perfect.
There's
Bonanno Production.
And then there's mine. That's where cutting back and forth.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
That was awesome.
So yeah, we both have our production companies.
Yeah.
You have your own merch too.
Yeah, it was weird. Over Christmas break, Christmas morning, I was opening some presents and I saw that my parents got me a hat, and I was like, oh, this is like really cool. And I just see my popcorn bucket logo and it says Bonanno Productions. I'm like, that is the coolest thing ever. Are you kidding me? I'm like, wow, it's like I feel so official. And on top of that, my parents also got me like a black jacket, and it has the Bonanno Productions logo like right by the left side. Oh, it was so cool. I'm like, this feels like so official. I'm like, I feel like I'm like working at Bonanno Productions, even though it's like I run it. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah, and it's a great start for one day when other people are wearing that.
Exactly. I hope, fingers crossed.
When they're getting it in thrift stores and it's like trendy and stuff. And when they're getting that merch, you'll be able to see where it started from.
Yep.
But also speaking of like trendy, you and I have gone to Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah twice now. So how about you just tell us a bit about that experience in your eyes and kind of what that all means to you?
Wow. Sundance Film Festival, it's like, where do I even begin? I always heard about the Sundance Film Festival, and like back when I was in high school, when I really started thinking like, wow, the film industry is where I want to go. I always heard about the Sundance Film Festival, and I was always thinking like, wow, there's so many great movies that have come from this festival. Like they premiered there, and I'm like, it's just an experience I never thought I would be able to live. Until last year for QFS when they were running the trip, and they said, hey Nick, you can come with us to the trip. I was freaking out. I'm like, this is the coolest, this is gonna be the coolest trip ever. Seeing like the world premiere of some of these movies that could go on to be classics. To name a few, last year A Real Pain, which is getting some Oscar buzz as well. A lot of really cool ones as well, like Dee Dee, which was my favorite of last year. Great coming of age comedy, which is close to my heart as well. Of course. But no, there was so many, and
Hitman as well.
Hitman was a huge one.
We got to see the world premiere of that with Glenn
Powell.
Powell.
I met Glenn Powell, by the way. I mean, if you look at the picture, you can't really tell us apart. But no,
separated at birth.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's so cool at Sundance because not only are you seeing the world premiere of these movies, but you really get to meet some of your idols or celebrities that you really love, and it was kind of surreal to me. I saw the premiere of Will and Harper last year, and if you know me, my two biggest idols growing up were both Will Ferrell and Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler, you can tell from the Bravado movies. But no, Will Ferrell was one of the first ones where it's like he always like really got to me like for the heart. I love his work, and last year it was surreal because when we were waiting in line, he walked right by me, which was absolutely insane. I was like freaking out. And then when we were all seated for the movie, he gave a speech before and after. And it was the weirdest thing. My friend Josh Brzezinski, who I mentioned before, he brought something up, and it really hit me afterwards. He was like, he told me that it's weird how we've listened to Will Ferrell's voice for many, many years. Like for me, my entire life, always listened to his voice through a screen. Yeah. And this was the first time, and probably the only time, we would ever hear his voice in person. And it was so surreal. It really hit me. I was like, that is the coolest thing. How I got to be in the same room as one of my idols, one of the people that drove me to be, wanting to make comedies and making movies in general. I'm like, that's a memory I'll never forget. Memory I'll never forget.
Yeah. You got to tap on the shoulder.
Yeah,
too,
I did
right?
get to tap him on the shoulder too. And I was like, oh, I'm never watching this man again. That was so cool. That was so cool.
And you and I also huge Cobra Kai fans. We got to meet.
Huge Cobra Kai fans.
I I always pronounce his name wrong. Solo Maridueña.
Solo Maridueña, yeah, who plays Miguel Diaz.
And
that was so cool.
I know.
That was so cool. We were eating. So one of the main restaurants in Park City is called Flanagan's, and me and Ryan, we were sitting down eating lunch, and then people at our table, they were turning around. They were like, "Hey, Blue Beetle's here. Blue Beetle's here." I'm like, I wasn't even really paying attention to what they were saying. And I was like, I don't know what you mean, Blue Beetle. And then they said, yeah, I think he's in that Karate Kid show, Cobra Kai. Once I heard Cobra Kai, CK, I turned right around. And who I see? I just see Solo Maridueña, who plays Miguel, just standing right there.
Yeah.
And I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Coolest thing ever. So I go up and we talked to him briefly. We got a picture. He held my phone to take a picture with. That was, see, memories like that, I absolutely love. That's why I'm so grateful I got to go.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful because that's another memory I'll always have for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And I got to stay behind and talk to him for a brief moment.
Yeah, you did.
And just talk to him about like how my family and I love the show. And he told me, the best season yet was ahead of us. And then like that was such a cool experience. I will take credit. I was the first one to notice him because I was sitting at the table, like blinders on, and I just turned and just through a crowd of people, I just see him. And I'm like,
oh, that's awesome.
And
I didn't know you were the first person that saw him.
Yeah, and then that's when I was like, I told Harry Rosenay, who you mentioned before as well, and then he told you, and then that's when like the whole thing was like we had to go up and see him. And it makes me, I think of that when you talk about seeing Will Ferrell for the first time, not behind the screen and not in the recording, as like seeing Miguel from Cobra Kai. It's like he's real, and also it's just like it's so weird when you only see somebody on television. And then you see them in real life. It's such a bizarre. It's hard to explain, like the feeling that comes from that.
No, it's so surreal, and that's why. It's just the coolest thing. It's like I guess like it's hard to explain. It's one of those things where it's like if you were there, you could like really understand like how surreal it really is. No, it was meeting him was a really really big one for me. Really really big one. I think that was my favorite interaction I had last year.
Yeah, I would agree. That's 100%. Definitely one of my best like celebrity interactions
100%.
in general.
Yeah.
Like as a fan meeting a celebrity, not like working with somebody professionally. Because he was just so nice to all of us. He's like random college kids going up to him in a bar basically while he's there with his parents.
Yeah.
His dad had the sick Blue Beetle shirt on.
The sick Blue Beetle shirt. That was awesome. And it was kind of funny because that's where I'm like, really the Sundance trip last year was really where I really met you, Ryan.
Yeah.
That was like where I really got to know you. And
you told me I look like Homelander.
I told you I look like Homelander.
That's what you told me.
Yeah. But like with Sholo, when we met him, it was so weird because everyone was saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of Blue Beetle," and I'm like, guys, what about Cobra Kai? And then you were the only other one that was like, "Oh, Cobra Kai." I was like, dude, I'm like, yep, this is my guy right here.
Yeah,
that was so cool.
I remember like telling all my family, all my friends, and they're like, "Oh, is Johnny Lawrence there too?"
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, he's next.
No, that was so much fun. So much fun, Ryan.
And that very much echoes how we have a lot of similar sensibilities too, like a lot of similar movies, similar kinds of movies. And I'd like to just ask in terms of like your Sundance experience, like what else would you want to like just bring up, like whether it be going around Park City or just talking about movies with your friends?
Oh wow. Well, going around Park City is probably my favorite thing to do. When I was at Sundance last year and this year, the trip we just got back from.
Yeah.
When you go around Park City, it's another one of those. It's weird how I always bring this up, but when you try to talk about certain experiences you have, it's really hard to like do the experience justice. Because it's something you have to experience in person. But when you're there in Park City, like slab in the middle. It's nothing, especially at nighttime with all the lights shining around and the snow all around. It's incredible. It's such an incredible sight. But my favorite thing is walking around Park City, and I mean, the coolest thing is when most times you'll run into celebrities, which is a big one. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. I met a lot of celebrities that are near dear to my heart. For example, talking about comedies, I love Adam Sandler, but one of his closest friends that he works with is Kevin Nealon, who was in Happy Gilmore, Blended, a lot of SNL sketches as well. We were walking by and I noticed him. I was like, wait, I think that's Kevin Nealon. And we all took like whole group pictures, and he's so down to earth. And that's a big thing why I love meeting certain celebrities, is because when you get the experience, like when they're talking to you and they're so down to earth, it feels like it's weird because like we always know them as celebrities, like all these big, you know, stars or whatever. But when you're actually like meeting them in person, it's like, wow, they really are just like normal people, and they treat you like a normal person. They're not gonna, you know, be so full of themselves most of the time. So just walking around Park City and meeting some of these celebrities, it's the coolest. It's the coolest, man. Yeah,
because I was there. I was fortunate enough to be there when we met Kevin Nealon. And he was just talking to us. Like, he's also from Connecticut. Which I knew was cool, something we could relate to him with. And like, he just talked to us. It's this kind of comedy legend just casually strolling through the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he was just like so nonchalant. Like, you wouldn't think he was this really famous guy. And those are some of the coolest interactions. Like, you were able to meet Stephen Yeun as well.
Who's
Dave
really
Franco
was another one
Dave
too.
Franco, who I was able to interview when we were there. And like, he was so cool as well. It's like, he's another one that's bizarre to see because he acts so much like James Franco when you talk to him, but he's also so down to earth. And it was just like, it's another situation where it's like you see him on the screen and you see him in real life, and it's just crazy juxtaposition.
Exactly. It's funny because this year I knew the lineup of celebrities I could potentially meet, and Dave Franco was my number one. Because, I mean, you know me, and I love comedies, and I've seen so much of his work, and I think he's absolutely so very talented. It's kind of unbelievable in a way. I'm just like, wow, because he goes from comedy to drama to horror. Like, he varies. Like, when he needs to be serious, he's phenomenal at acting serious. When he needs to be funny, he's hilarious. Like, I absolutely love it. I think he's one of the most underrated actors. Him and Jason Bateman are my most underrated actors, in my opinion. But the thing with Dave Franco I was really nervous of because, I mean, he's been in so many movies, some of my favorite movies ever. And I was like, I was like really nervous to meet him. But I shook his hand. I was talking to him very briefly. I got a picture with him. And a movie that me, my dad, and my brother, again, comedies with me, my dad, and my brother. No, we love the movie Disaster Artist. I showed that to them, and they think it's one of the funniest movies he's ever been in. So I asked him to drop a "Oh hi Mark," and he was laughing his ass off. He was like, "Get the hell out of here!" That was so funny. That was like such a amazing interaction. I'm like, that's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. That was so surreal. Yeah,
because for those who don't know, like outside of the theaters, there's this little like back entrance where the celebrities leave from, and then sometimes fans go there to meet them, and you were able to catch them there and then get that little exchange. Which was so cool.
So cool. I love it.
And then like my experience like interviewing him, and then also his wife Allison Brie, who is in the movie.
Hilarious, by the way.
She's
awesome. So funny.
And they're both in the movie together, which will be dropping this summer. And even that was a crazy process because, you know, you were waiting for me in the theater. Because I had to interview them, run into the wait list line, which is the line for those who don't have tickets trying to get in. And then I was last in line, such a little odds to get in. I somehow get in. I run into the theater. I sit down in a seat just as the movie begins. It was such a crazy turn of events to get to interview them and then run right into the theater. And to kind of add on to this question, can you tell us just some of your, I know you mentioned them earlier, some of your favorite Sundance movies?
Like last year, this year, or like that have ever premiered?
If you can, of the last 2 years you've been there, if you can give us even the top 5 of movies from both festivals.
Can I pull up my letterbox real quick?
Of course you can,
awesome.
You can plug your letterbox here.
My letterbox is Bonanno123. You're probably gonna wonder how to spell it. I'm not gonna say that.
It'll be in the description.
Let me pull it up. So, should I give my top 3 from both years, from last year and this year? All right. I'll go this year first. My top 3 was Ricky, Sorry Baby, and Together with Dave Franco and Allison Brie. They were absolutely phenomenal, all 3 of those. Together was with Dave Franco and Allison Brie, and it was a body horror type of movie, and it had a much deeper meaning. But it's weird because that was like one of the first movies in a while that actually made me jump and actually like scared. I was, oh my gosh, the acting, the way that the director and the writers like actually thought of this concept is so creative, and I think that was amazing to watch on the big screen. And the fact that we got to be a part of the world premiere of it was so cool. It's so cool. My other one, Sorry Baby, directed by Eva Victor. This is her directorial debut. Apparently she's done a lot with comedy or whatnot. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean, the main synopsis really doesn't say much, and I feel like it's the best way to describe the movie. I'll read it real quick. It's something bad happened to Agnes, but life goes on for everyone around her at least.
Yeah.
It's very brief, and it's not really specific at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's what makes the watch even better when you go watch it. And it really it's very, very funny, but it really hits you with some like the real life problems that a lot of people go through. So it can really relate to anyone. And that's why this movie was phenomenal. But my favorite of this year was a movie called Ricky, which was actually shot and takes place in East Hartford, Connecticut.
Really?
Yeah, which is 10-15 minutes away from my house.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because my grandmother, my nonna, actually lives in East Hartford. So a lot of parts in the movie I actually recognized. I was like, wow,
Really?
that was so cool. Yeah, it was so cool. And no, it was so surreal. I'm like watching it. I'm like, what? And then once they say, oh yeah, I grew up in East Hartford, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. This happened at Sundance? That's awesome. Yeah. No, that movie, it's about a man named Ricky, and at the age of 15, he was incarcerated, and he got let out at 30, so he spent half of his life in jail. And basically, he's in the mindset he's still a 15-year-old. Yeah. So once he gets out, within like the first few weeks of being let out, he's I don't want to give too much away, but basically he goes through a lot of lessons you're supposed to learn at that age of growing up, getting older, taking care of yourself, getting jobs and stuff. He learns all that at 30, but really in his head he's still 15. So it was phenomenal, and it was one of the only movies that actually like made me like, it really started making me like jerk a tear. It was really weird. But those were my big three of this year. But last year I'll be very brief with it. Which one? I had Dee Dee, A Real Pain, and It's What's Inside. It's What's Inside. I'll start with that one. It's What's Inside was a movie that I didn't know it was a Sundance movie until it came to Netflix, I think back in the past October. And I was like, what is, and then apparently I found out that, it was a Sundance movie. I was like, this was phenomenal. I wish I watched the premiere of it. But it's a whole movie, again, not going to give too much away, but apparently it was a movie about a group of friends that were in their like mid-20s, and one of their friends brings a device where they learn how to swap bodies with each other, and it leads into a whole what the F type of movie. So it was really interesting to watch, and I highly recommend that. And then second was A Real Pain with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin. One of the only 3 movies to make me cry. So I was like, well, by cry I mean shed a tear. I don't bawl my eyes out, but no, that acting was phenomenal and story was amazing, and I'm really, really upset that Emilia Perez is getting so much Oscar buzz and not a real pain. I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, whatever. But my number one was Dee Dee. Which was directed by Sean Wong. It's his directorial debut. And it's about a kid named Chris, and he is a Taiwanese American, and his mother and grandmother live with him and a sister, and they don't really speak English. So it's like speaking, half of the movie's like spoken in English, and then half of it's like translated. So it kind of felt very personal in a way, because like my grandparents, but they would speak like broken English, which for me was, when I was a kid, it was like the equivalent of not understanding English at all. But no, it just felt very proud of its culture and the amount of themes they had of just growing up, and the amount of events that happen with that movie of, what happens like with teenage boys getting older. It's something I felt very connected to, and it's a movie. I saw that back January of 2024. And now it's still a whole year later, and I still can't stop thinking about that movie. It's one of those movies that it really got to me. It's like it's like mid 90s, but for like the 2000s era. But no, it's so wholesome. I absolutely love it. But those were my big favorite Sundance movies from the past 2 trips.
It really is incredible how these films can stick with you. Because I remember one of the directors from a film I saw this past Sundance said that like these films should stick. Like he used the example of like while you're washing dishes, you should randomly think about this movie. Yeah. Like that's how it hits you. And were you able to meet Sean Long?
I was. This year, well, I rewatched Didi, I think 4 times before I went to Sundance this year.
Yeah.
It really stuck with me. And when we were walking by the premiere for Atropia, we were waiting for an Uber, and we saw the director walking by, like with no one around him. And me and Harry, we went up and asked. We were like, "Excuse me, are you the director of Didi?" And he was like, "Yeah." So we very briefly got to talk to him, but because he had to go, but we snagged a picture with him. And I was just talking to him, just saying like the movie, it was my favorite of last year, and it really like connected with me. And he was like, "Oh, thank you." He was such a down to earth guy, which I love. That's what I was saying about celebrities. When you meet them and they're so like down to earth and they treat you like you're any other person. I mean, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
And that's like some of the heartwarming, random things that can just happen in Park City, because you'll just have all these very notable people in the film industry just walking around, just casually, like kind of like I mentioned before, nonchalant.
Yeah.
But we're getting to know a lot about celebrities. But let's get to know more about you, Nick.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to ask you, what are some?
You sure you want to know about me?
That's why you're here.
Okay.
That's why you're here. So I'd ask you, what are some things that people might not know about you, like fun facts?
Oh wow. You probably, I want to say you would know this about me, but not many people would know about me, is I'm a huge family person. Like I'm very family oriented. It gets to a point where it's like there's not a time that goes by where it's like, oh, I don't think about my family, because I grew up in an Italian American household. I know I don't look it, but I'm actually 100% Italian.
Wow.
Which I always get told, you just do not look Italian at all, let alone 100. No, but I'm very proud of being an Italian, and I have my nonas, and I have all of my aunts and uncles. I come with a huge family with many first cousins, second cousins, and the list goes on and on, with a whole other side of my family in Italy.
Yeah.
And no, there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about them. And no, I want to make, again, when I'm talking about making movies, I want to make movies that they can represent Italian culture as well. But also movies that are also very family oriented, which is another reason why I love Didi, where it shows like their culture, but it also shows like it's a very like family, learning how to love your family even more type of movie. Yeah, I was gonna say it was a family movie, but don't watch that with your family. It's a very hard art, but no, that's a fun fact about me, I guess. I guess another fun fact is I have a dog, which I love with all my heart. Her name's Zoe. She's a miniature Schnauzer. She's a pain in the ass. I can't lie. She's fun. She's actually it's weird because she's like really like hyper a lot of the times, but there'll always be like one part of each day where she's just so quiet and so calm, and it's weird. It's peaceful, and she's also like, she's not registered as an emotional support dog, but she kind of is to me, I guess. Amount of times I'm like just trying to do whatever, like hang out, or I'm doing work or whatever, she always will just like quietly walk up to me, and she'll always just try to like play with me or something like that. She always brightens my day every time I see her. So but those are some few fun facts, I guess.
Even at your lowest, you're still a family guy.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I was gonna say a Family Guy joke, but I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna bring that up.
It set me up to make it. But I think that very much speaks to you, Nick, and the way the kind of big energy you have all the time. It's also very warm energy, and I very much feel that with what you just said, being a family guy. So it kind of all tracks.
Thank you.
And kind of speaking, you love your family. I'd like to ask you, what's one thing you love and one thing you strongly dislike?
Oh wow, dislike a lot of people. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. I'll start with like. I should have said this for a fun fact. I guess like music. Yeah. There's not a day that goes by where I don't listen to music. It's weird because whether I'm in a great mood or I'm in a bad mood or I just want to listen to music, I'm gonna listen to music, and it really like, it's kind of therapeutic for me. There's times like when I say like if I'm in a bad mood, there's times when normally you want to listen to something or someone tell you, hey, everything's gonna be okay, whatever like that. it's weird because I actually listen to sadder songs when I'm in a bad mood. I guess because I feel like someone like heard. Like it's not like, oh, it's all sugar coated.
Yeah,
it's like, oh no, everything's gonna be completely fine. Don't worry about it at all. I feel like when I'm listening to certain songs that kind of match my mood, I'm like, wow, like I feel like I'm being heard. I'm like being understood. So it's kind of weird, but one thing I really like is music.
Yeah, 100%. So it like matches your emotion.
Exactly. Yeah. Dislike. Oh wow, what do I dislike? I think this might sound very, I don't know how to put it. I think something I dislike, I guess, is I'm gonna say division between people. I've learned especially when it comes to politics.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy when it comes to politics. Especially like when you're working on something or in the film industry. I just feel like a lot of times, like, well, for example, if you're making a movie and you want to bring up political issues, it's completely fine. But the whole thing, like with the election we just had and, you know, certain politicians that are popular now, I feel like it's just some people, no matter which party you belong to, you'll have like a divide between, it's like, oh, because you voted for this person, oh, I can't be friends with you or anything like that. And I don't like that at all. I mean, like, everyone's born and raised differently. It's almost like, hey, if you hated my favorite movie, I'm just not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not crazy about how certain people are when it comes to politics in general. Like, I don't like the divide we have, and that's why I want to make movies that can bring us together, not like push us apart. Yeah. And that's a big thing I dislike, is the division amongst us.
Yeah. That's why I say don't let people who aren't in your life impact the relationships with people who are.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's something people can do oftentimes with something that, where at the end of the day, it's how you are with someone shouldn't be impacted by those kinds of things. And I like your noble pursuit of just bringing people together through a shared thing is what is the opposite of dividing something, sharing something, and then you can share a fun experience at the movies with your friends, with people.
Yeah.
And that can kind of bring people together, and that's one of your dreams. So I'd like to ask you, what are some of your hopes and dreams professionally or in general?
Oh, wow. Hopes and dreams. Okay, professionally, I would love to work anywhere in the film industry. I would love to be a producer, but deep down, I would absolutely love to be a director or an actor.
Yeah.
I like performing and playing certain different characters, because I feel like that's just a really fun thing for me to do. That's one of my favorite, I guess, hobbies in a way.
Yeah.
But directing, I would love to direct a movie, and that also brings me into screenwriting. I also love to write and direct my own movies as well, because I have a lot of stories I want to tell, and I have a certain vision for how I want these stories to be told. So I feel like directing or writing would be right up my alley.
Yeah.
What's another one? Oh, for in general.
Yeah.
I would love to be married and have kids in the future.
Yeah.
I would love to. I mean, again, I'm a family guy, so I hope to have a wife named Lois and 3 kids. No, but
seems today.
Exactly. That's awesome. Giggity. Sorry. No, but in the future, whatever life brings me, I'll be blessed. That's all I care about.
And you're getting experience with all these things today, with writing, directing, acting in your films. You're with your big family. You'll create another big family and keep things going. And I have full faith that you'll be able to do that. And now we're gotten to probably what's going to be your favorite question. What are some of your favorite movies?
I just like to address, you could have just asked me, and this could have been the whole
the whole
conversation, the whole podcast could have just been this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you my Letterboxd top 4. How about that? That sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So my favorite movie in the entire world is Superbad. And I think it's because I watched that at, I guess, the right but also weird age. I watched that when I was 12 for the first time, which is very raunchy and very not for 12-year-olds in a way, but I was in 7th grade going into 8th grade, and I remember my Uncle Joey, who he's another person I share my love for comedies with. We were talking about comedy movies at a function we had, and he told me that one of his favorites was Superbad. And I remember my mom's like, oh, I don't know if you can watch that. And I decided I'm like, no, I'm gonna find a way to watch this movie. So I watched it, and I was at a time in my life, and I was like, wow, I really, really connected with these characters. Well, I'm like, I felt related to Jonah Hill's character in a way, like trying to be like, oh, this big badass kind of way, but really can be insecure at times. But he makes people laugh. He gives people a good time. And all he wants is for him and his friends to have a good time, which it's weird. But that movie was the first movie where I'm like, wow, because I've always loved movies growing up. But I feel like that was the movie that really set it off, saying, you know what, this is what I want to do. That's why, like, since then, since 12 years old, I'm like, I want to make funny movies like this. I want to create characters like this. I'll make people laugh and, you know, feel connected to, and again, bring people together. So Superbad is my #1 favorite movie. And I could literally watch that anytime, any day. I actually showed it to my roommates not too long ago, and they absolutely loved it. And it was so fun. That's my #1. My 2, we're getting into my Italian culture. My #2 is Goodfellas. Vastly different from Superbad. Vastly different. I think Scorsese might be my favorite director, because he's an Italian man, and he does incorporate a lot of his Italian culture with his movies, which I absolutely love. And for me, Goodfellas is the perfect movie. And it's weird how it's 2.5 hours, and I could watch that and I just do not feel like the run like that. It feels like it's like 20 minutes, just like that. It's right from the start. I think cinematography, acting, writing, I think direction, I think it has every element that you need to make a great movie. I feel like it completes that. For me personally, I feel like Goodfellas is the best made movie I've ever seen. I know a lot of people disagree.
I was about to say, when you were done explaining why you love it so much, I rewatched it this past holiday season. Oddly, it's kind of a Christmas movie to me. Oddly, I don't know why it kind of feels like one. I was watching it, and I was just like, now knowing so much more about film, so different perspective from when I first watched it, and I thought this definitely has a case for being the best movie ever made. Oh yeah, and I feel like that's not discussed often enough with like the Citizen Kanes and Godfathers, etc.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because Godfather's in my top 5 favorite movies. But it's weird because I feel like because Godfather is always talked about, that it kind of leaves Goodfellas almost as like a sidekick. In a way, like, because Godfather is one of those huge monumental movies, and it's absolutely phenomenal. But really, I feel like Goodfellas just isn't really talked about as much as, like, I feel like Oppenheimer's talked about it much. It's only been out for, 2 years? Or almost 2 years fully. And Goodfellas has been out since 1990. And it doesn't really feel like people really talk about it. And it's weird. But I really feel like every single thing in that movie, I feel like is perfect. I really couldn't find one flaw that's with that movie at all. And for the Italian culture part, every single thing is spot on. Oh my gosh, talking about like every Sundays you're like making the meatballs and stirring the sauce and stuff. That's literally my family every Sunday. Taking out the tablecloth on Sundays for dinner time, and we have dinner time around like 1. It was so relatable. And every time I watch that, that's like a huge family favorite with my cousins, my grandparents, my brother, my dad. Oh my gosh, every time like we talk about certain movies, Goodfellas is like the #1 favorite. Love it. I'll get into my last 2 for my top 4. My 3rd is Back to the Future. I love the 80s, man. 80s is so awesome. Like the music, the movies, everything about I love the whole era. Like I love like the retro type of like, I guess like the neon type of vibe, you know what I mean? Like you've seen Stranger Things, right?
I have not, no.
Okay, well, season 3 took place in it's like 1985, and it gives like these neon colors and a lot of like these like this huge vibe to it, and I love the 80s specifically, like with stuff like that. And I feel like Back to the Future just captures the 80s so perfectly. I don't know why, that feels like the most 80s movie to me. And
I would agree.
And oh my god, I absolutely love it. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. Like in my top 10, I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars movies, Empire Strikes Back being one of my favorite movies of all time. But there's something about Back to the Future. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, but it was also so insane how they wrote that. Because this is like 1985. This is like one of the first movies to like really play around with time travel. So making a movie, like, there's actually one part in Back to the Future where, in the very beginning, it's called, I think, Twin Pines Mall. And they were saying, oh, it's called Twin Pines because back in the day, in 1955, there was a farmer named Old Man Peabody, and he grew 2 twin pine trees. And then when he goes back in time to 1955, you see him run over one of those pine trees. So then when he goes back to the future, to back to 1985, it just says, like, Single Pine Mall or something like that, and it just shows one pine. That's so cool. The fact that someone, like, they thought of that and wrote that back in, like, time when it was, like, still one of, like, the first movies to really, like, play around with time travel. Again, chef's kiss. I think that's perfect writing. And it's so lovable. It's such like a heartwarming story. Like when he's trying to get his parents back together, I don't know, I just, like, it always, like, hits me when they're having, like, that last dance, and you see them, like, the parents come together and much closer, and they love each other even more. It just, I love seeing that. I was saying that, but I love Back to the Future so much. But my number 4 is an odd one. It's Toy Story. Toy Story is my favorite animated movie ever. And I know I'm 19 years old, but sometimes I still feel like a kid. Oh, yeah. And every time I watch Toy Story, I feel like I'm 5 years old again with my Woody and Buzz Lightyear doll and all my Toy Story toys, like, sitting around my TV in my playroom just watching Toy Story. And I don't know, I feel like it's it's the Disney Pixar magic that really does it, because it's weird. It just brings me back every time I watch it, and the voices and the animation and, like, all the colors. I'm like, this is everything I want in an animated movie, and I feel like that's why it's my number 4. Yeah, but those are some of my favorite movies. I could honestly I could go on forever and ever talking about my favorite movies, but those are my big ones. Let me ask you, what are your 4 favorite movies?
The Dark Knight. Usually what I go to, just the movie I've seen the most. Christopher Nolan. Kind of like Heat, but with Batman and Joker, and then the psychological debates. It's kind of just, like, in my eyes, like a perfect movie.
Oh, it is so perfect.
That I can rewatch over and over again. La La Land, of course, another kind of modern classic.
Oh yeah. I
would say Jerry Maguire. If you ever seen it with Tom Cruise, I love Jerry Maguire.
It's great.
Like, the way it's just, like, everything I like. It's a rom-com. I've never seen football represented better on the big screen, like NFL football. Like, it looks so authentic, where typically football kind of can look like a lot of slow-mo when they're doing it on, like
it's a lot of montages.
Yeah, a lot of montages where, like, it just straight up, like, when Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character is playing football, it straight up looks like it's an NFL game. Like, they presented that so well. But of course, just like Tom Cruise is one of my favorite actors, and it's just a movie I love. And I would also say The Place Beyond the Pines, the Derek San France film.
I haven't seen that one. That's been on my watch list.
Yeah, that's a movie where I bring it up, and people are usually like, huh. It's just a movie, the way it blends storylines, very, like, Shakespearean, modern kind of family drama. I watched it just randomly because, like, oh, Ryan Gosling's in it. And then it turned out to just be this incredible experience. So that's something I recommend to anyone who hasn't watched it. So those are the 4 movies I point to, but it fluctuates so much. Like, you could ask me tomorrow, and I might give you a different answer.
Exactly.
That's how it goes. But overall, Nick, I'd like to just thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
I'm glad. I know you've wanted to come on for so long, so I'm happy. It was such a cool experience. And do you want to share anything with the audience before we go?
Oh, wow. Which camera should I look at? That one?
Yeah.
First thing, watch the Zicast, by the way. Do you see how much effort this guy puts in? Come on now. Watch the Zicast. Phenomenal podcast. I think the last thing I'll leave is whatever you're passionate about, go for it. I mean, you can have there'll be many doubts come along the way. There's going to be many obstacles, but if you're really passionate about something, go through with it. And that's what everyone should do with no matter what career you want to pursue. But that's what I'm going to leave you with.
Perfect. And I think that speaks so much to you, Nick. It's been so great kind of getting to know you, getting to work with you on projects and getting to go to Sundance with you. It's always fun seeing a movie and then chopping it up after, going in the hot tub outside and talking about films. And we like I mentioned before, we have similar sensibilities, and you're always someone I can go to kind of talk about movies, and I'm always interested in hearing your perspective, and it's always just hanging around with you in general because you're a blast to be around.
Oh,
and
thank you, man.
You
too.
Thank you, and you're gonna be a blast to work with wherever you end up in the film industry, and I'm so excited to see you with your big family on more red carpets.
Thank you so much.
Of course, dude. And as always, this is Ryan Zicast for the Zicast, where everyone has a story, signing off. Thank you so much for watching.